Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here. You know, they called me and said, are you going to make it? Are you going to make it? It's snowing out. Well, if you know me or you know where I'm from, I grew up on the great Lake Erie in western New York. This ain't nothing, folks. This ain't nothing. They got this every day of my life as a teenager. They did this in July up there. Well, okay, in July we had summer in Buffalo. But no, in all seriousness, if you don't need to drive, don't. The roads are horrible. And kind of that what I was just joking about. No, I'm an experienced driver in bad conditions, and these are horrible conditions. And I only came in because I wanted to talk to you guys. So 540-0580, 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions, whatever you want to talk about. Also, I announced the winners. I sent out 2 emails this past week announcing the winners of our 30-plus gift certificates we gave away, most of which were to Applebee's, some $50 gift certificates, $25 gift certificates, tons of $10 gift certificates. And a bunch of those have been claimed, but a bunch haven't. So if you've ever been a registered user of weekendappointment.com, if you've ever registered, you were eligible at those times when the giveaways were done. So perhaps you're not checking your email, or maybe it ended up in your spam box somehow. But make sure you go to weekendappointment.com, go to the registered users section, or rather the announcement section. You can see it even if you don't log in, but you should log in. And you can find out if you won or not, and then you follow to claim those prizes, because they must be claimed by December 31st, or else we're going to re-gift them. And that's just the way it's going to be. 540-0580. And I just want to also remind you, we are going to give away another $25 Applebee's gift certificate and 2 $10 gift certificates today. So if you're a registered user by 7 o'clock p.m. today, you will be eligible. And that goes for everybody who's already a registered user and anybody who joins between now and 7 p.m. today. So if you're sitting at home on this snowy day with nothing to do, register at weekendappointment.com. Make yourself eligible for three different prizes. And again, we keep giving stuff away. So once you're a registered user, you're always eligible. Kim, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Kim?
Hi. My son, love your show, by the way.
Thank you.
Absolutely love it. Listen every week.
Thank you very much.
My son, when he was 12, 13 years old, living with his dad, kind of out of control kid, got a bunch of school truancy fines, had 1 or 2 underage drinking fines. Thank God he has straightened himself out now, and he's an upstanding citizen, nice young man. He's 20 now. When he was 18, he was with a bunch of friends in a car, and the car he was in did not have a current registration. They were pulled over, and because in Reading, where he lives, there was a curfew for under 18s, all their IDs were run, and there was 17 warrants for his arrest.
Okay.
All stemming from when he was 12 or 13. I didn't know about a lot of this because he was living with his dad, and at the time, all the paperwork and everything went to his dad.
Right.
Well, here we find out Dad didn't do a damn thing about it.
Okay.
Not a thing. Didn't pay any of them, nothing. He spent a week in jail. All the judges, there were several judges and jurisdictions involved. They all let him go with time served. But we didn't know, and none of the judges told us that the ramifications would be for each one of these offenses, there would be a period of time that he could not have a driver's license.
Right.
So for the past 2 years, he's dealt with it, but now he's finding it very, very difficult as he gets older. Is there anything that an attorney can do to help us out for this?
The answer is no. Long and short of it is, once those things are final, as a general rule, you're not going to be reopen them. And PennDOT, the great beast called PennDOT, takes an attitude, and this is their attitude, that you're a customer when you show up, right? It says customer on the wall, but really what you are is a peon, and they don't really care. Now, they do have a probationary license system, and he might be able to apply for that, but they have a billion rules on that. But the current administration of PennDOT takes the position, they take a strong position that it's their job to be punitive and not to exercise their discretion to the benefit of the driving public. So his best bet is to apply for what's called a probationary license. If he hasn't been in trouble in a long time, they may give him a probationary work license.
He has not. He hasn't been in trouble since he's been a young teenager.
That's his only remedy. And it's discretionary. We can't even make him do it.
Okay.
But yeah, Kim, let me just use you as a little springboard here. If you've got people always think, well, the judge is going to tell me what happens to my license, or the district attorney will tell me what happens to my license, or the police officer will fully explain that I will lose my firearms rights if I plead guilty. No, it's not any of their job. They're not required to do it. In fact, the law says that they don't have to do it. And as a result, you will never be told about the collateral consequences of those things. And that's why when somebody says to me, well, should I talk to an attorney? I always say, at least talk to an attorney so that, and someone who practices in that area, criminal law or traffic law. If you ask them if they do, if they say, no, I just do family law, they might not be aware of the collateral consequences either. But for instance, an underage drinking can hold up getting your teaching certificate. A underage drinking is going to result in a license suspension. A possession of paraphernalia will not result in a license suspension, but possession of pot will. So there's lots of things that you need to know so that when you're massaging those guilty pleas, you can prevent the license loss while satisfying the government that your client gets on probation, etc. So big issue here, Kim. Thanks for pointing it out for us today, but I don't think there's anything else you can do.
All right. Well, I'll just have to get along on a bike for a while.
Yeah. Well, not today. All right. Take care.
Not today. All right. Thank you very much.
540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions here on the air. David, you're on WHP 580.
Yes, I got a question about child custody. My grandson, his mother is a single mother.
Okay.
The boy's father has been deported to another country.
Okay.
Now, if something would happen to her, what would happen to that boy?
Well, theoretically, he's the father.
Right.
So that would be the first place we would look to.
Oh, Lord. That'd be hard to get a hold of him.
Well, and that's the next question is realistically, is somebody going to notify him, and how's that going to happen? I think that your daughter should, at the very least, consider, well, there's a couple different things we could do. One would be she can put in her will, what she wants, and it will be, advisory, not mandatory. Number two, if you really want to complicate things, perhaps one of the grandparents can get legal custody now. And there's ways of doing that, although if I were advising her, I might say, well, you might not want to tangle that up because then you're going to be stuck with a new person in the mix, but some people are fine with that.
Well, it's not that in the mix. I'm just worried if something would happen to her.
Right.
Who would be able to take care of that boy? The state would come in and just say, hey, we're taking him, or?
Yeah, the answer is usually there's a preference for what's called kinship care. So they're going to place them with a close relative most immediately. But then they're going to try to notify Dad. Now, wink, wink, nod, nod. Maybe nobody can find Dad. Maybe nobody can get him notified, and then we just stick with a kinship care that turns into kind of a permanent guardianship.
Okay, that was my question. I didn't know what would happen to the boy. It's been concerning me.
Yeah.
Since he got deported a year ago.
These are real problems, and these other countries. If the kid ends up in the other country, sometimes it's very difficult. To get visitation, to get him back. And obviously it sounds like if Dad got deported, he must have done something.
He was just an illegal immigrant,
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
And I really feel bad for the whole situation, but it leaves this kid high and dry.
Right. Which is what, well, I'm not going to open up this whole can of worms, but if we were to talk about the whole immigration debate, that's one of the problems. You wholesale deport 18 million people, you're going to leave 1 million kids behind with only half or no parents.
That's exactly what happened. It left half a parent here. And, she talks to him and he wants to come back, but the government's just dragging their feet like government does.
Right. And so it goes back on our tax dollars. I got a whole shtick. Someday if I fill in for Durgan again, I'll get on immigration. We'll get them all riled up because I think it's a little more nuanced than a lot of listeners think it is.
All righty.
All right. Take care. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. 540-0580. 540-0580. Show where I answer your legal questions. And I want to remind people to go to weekendappointment.com. Make sure you're registered. More importantly, if you've been a registered user before, you may have won one of those gift certificates. We announced the winners beginning of the week, and we've had a bunch of people claim them, but we have a bunch of unclaimed prizes, and I'd hate to see somebody lose out on those tons of Applebee's gift certificates that you can use. So make sure you go and check. You got to go to weekendappointment.com and check and see if your username won. And if it did, you just follow the instructions to claim your prize. But you got to do it before December 31st, or we're going to re-gift them like fruitcake. I got some interesting questions on the website throughout the week, and I had two that kind of always along the same lines, different areas of law. One was about bankruptcy. Should I file and should I do it alone? And the person lays out a fairly complex series of questions involving the bankruptcy law, all of which are not exactly straightforward and which may be in any given person's situation handled differently. Student loans, and there's some proceeds left from a student loan, and there's this, that, and that. And should they file, and what should they declare? How should they declare things? Well, the long and short of it is the question begs, yes, you should be with a bankruptcy attorney. Believe it or not, it's not a simple, straightforward, I fill out some forms, send them in, and discharge my debts. There are a lot of exemptions and things that you can keep. There are certain ways of structuring certain debts to minimize expense. Also, there are ways of sometimes keeping accounts open and working with particular creditors on a one-by-one basis that a bankruptcy attorney would do. So, yes, you need a bankruptcy attorney, and yes, you should not do it alone. Filing your own bankruptcy is not a good idea. In fact, bankruptcy is something that you don't even want to let a lawyer who doesn't usually do it file for you because there are so many little ins and outs. Then I had a related but unrelated question about whiplash, and a gal says she was in a car accident and she was wondering, what she should do and whether she needs an attorney or not. And of course, what I thought was interesting, I replied to her, and then she let me know that the insurance company told her not to contact an attorney because it's a flat settlement. A lawyer would just steal a third of it. Well, I can think of some people who would tell you that you get an attorney, you get more than you would get if you just settle on your own, usually even after the attorney's fees taken out. Also, the insurance companies a lot of times won't tell you about all the little things you have to do out there. Like, for instance, if Department of Public Welfare, say Blue Chip for your kid was hurt in an accident, they may have a lien that needs to be paid. You settle with the insurance company, that's great. Next thing you know, you owe half your settlement money back to somebody else, and they capture it before you get it. And if you'd have known about that, you certainly wouldn't have settled for that amount. But the insurance company is not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you how to research the Medicare liens. They're not going to tell you how to research any of the other possible Blue Cross Blue Shield subrogation issues that are out there. They're not going to tell you what your injury is really worth. And, of course, they're going to try to suggest to you that, that 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, whatever amount they're offering is fully reasonable and that any more is insurance fraud. And the reality is they're in the business of not paying out claims. So, again, if you have a personal injury case, you think you're going to help yourself out by not getting a lawyer, not true. And even if you go, oh, well, they're going to offer me the policy limit, you may not be getting all the coverage you can get. You may actually goof up things and deny yourself further coverage. By the way, talk line number is 540-0580, 540-0580. Call me with your legal question. But my point is, you may actually, for instance, by settling with one insurance company, give up your ability to go after another insurance company. Oh, Carl, how could that be? How could I have other insurance companies to go after? Well, there could have been more than one vehicle responsible for the accident, but you may not realize it, but the insurance policy that you have may also have certain coverages for you. Oh, Carl, I don't want to make a claim against my own insurance company. My rates will go up. No, they will not go up if you go after your own uninsured, underinsured, which you should have. Also, you might not even have those things. You may have waived them, but I may be able to make a claim and actually prove that the insurance company didn't get the right paperwork signed and you didn't actually waive it knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily. And the legislature has said that it has to be waived a certain way. That gets goofed up. My point is you really don't know all those ins and outs, just like I don't really know all the ins and outs when it comes to repairing my car. I don't understand the concept of an oil change. I don't necessarily know what the best oil is. I understand, how to get an alternator out of an 84 Pontiac. I also know that I don't have the tools to do it, and so it's still better to send it over to somebody who knows a little more than I do. Also, heaven forbid I break a bolt, I'm stuck. So anyhow, my point is, yes, both of those people need attorneys, and if you think you need an attorney, it's like headlights. Do I need my headlights? Just turn them on. If you think you need an attorney, consult with one. If you have an attorney you can trust, somebody you know, or you find one that you like, you should be able to run it by the attorney. And if the attorney says, you don't need me. So just yesterday I was on the phone with a gal, and she ran something by me, and I said, you don't need me. Here's what I want you to do. And she said, what do I owe you? I said, you don't owe me anything. You don't need me yet. If this happens, call me. If that happens, call me. But if you don't, just go forward, do this, and it should work out. Just think about me in the future. And that's what a good attorney, especially one. So if you use an attorney once in a while and you call in with another question, they're probably going to help you out with it. Jim, you're on WHP 580.
Hey, Matt. Great listening to you.
Hey, thanks.
I got a CDL. I got a speeding ticket going to work the other day in my own vehicle.
Okay.
14 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Okay.
I pleaded not guilty, and I just want to go in there and plead to the court, lower it for me. So what do I say?
Well, okay. Now, I don't want you to answer this because I'm not gonna comment on it per se. But one of the things as a lawyer that I think about is what jurisdiction it's in, who the judge is, and who the police officer is, what department, maybe the individual officer. Because some district justices, I should say district judges, used to be district justices, now they're district judges, have different temperaments, and some don't believe in lowering speeds at all.
All right. Others
will gladly lower speed even over the police officer's objection, and others will only do it if there's an agreement between you and the police officer. The other thing that we've found, and I sincerely, everybody's going to say, oh, you think everybody needs an attorney, but here's something that happens. When you go in and you try to negotiate with the police officer, you have the difference between you and me is when I go talk to the police officer, if the police officer says, yeah, this guy was speeding and he's horrible and he's evil and he's a bad guy, I can be like, yeah, he is, but let's, nuts and bolts soup, let's just talk and work this out. Whereas if it's you and the police officer kind of gets in your face a little bit, says, hey, you were speeding and I've seen your driver's record and I know what this is about and you're a CDL driver and you should know better, you might react emotionally to that.
Okay.
And you might not find yourself in the best negotiating posture when you're like, well, hey, come on, buddy, give me and then the personal anger heats up between two people. Mm. So sometimes it's better to have the lawyer do the negotiation because the cop can't really be mad at the lawyer. I mean, the lawyer wasn't there, right? The lawyer wasn't speeding. Right. The lawyer's just doing his job, and the cop's just doing his job, and they talk and they joke about maybe maybe a little goose hunting or something they've both done recently. And everybody works it out. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the police officer says, I'm not doing this, no how, no way. Now, you lose it to district justice. You can then appeal that to the common pleas court, and you get a second crack at the apple. Same police officer, but then a district attorney gets in the mix. Sometimes they make reasonable offers even when the police didn't want to. Sometimes they defer completely to the officer. But, again, sometimes it might be a better day. The guy might not have fought with his wife that morning. And these are all the personality things that come into play when you're asking for a favor, because I think you're essentially saying, yeah, he probably got me speeding, but I'm a CDL driver and I want to keep the points off my license. Right. It wasn't 15 over, so you're out of a major violation.
That's exactly.
But nonetheless, it's well worth your time as a CDL driver. And, hey, I tell anybody with a speeding ticket, always go in and try to negotiate it or fight it, okay. Because when guys show up with their third ticket and they're about to lose their license, I say, I could have won the first one. Maybe I could have won the second one. Maybe I'll win the third one. But if you had to come in for each one, we'd probably be in a lot better shape. We wouldn't have a must-win case here or you go for a points exam. So my thought for you is, go in if you're going to do it by yourself and be as polite as possible. Be prepared to completely humble yourself. I mean, I have guys that tell me, I'm going to go in there and tell him that this is a bunch of garbage and there's bushes in the way and there's no way he could have seen that and there's no way he could have done that. And I'm like, boy, you tell him all that and then ask him for a reduction, see how that goes.
Well, I mean, do I go in there and say, okay, look, I'm guilty. I was doing it. I'm guilty, but can we lower it? Is that good?
You can do that. And usually try to do that with the officer ahead of time. You can also try that with the judge. It's not always going to work. Again, you got to know which judge it is and you got to know which officer it is and you got to know sometimes what the pitch is. I mean, I remember one time asking a state trooper to let me lower a charge down to a no-point violation. He said no. And I asked him about 27 times over the next half an hour while we waited for the hearing, which is about once every minute. And the girls in the office were laughing at me. And he finally said, you know what, you've been so persistent, I'll do it. You've worn me down. Mm. I mean, so, every case is going to be a little different. And I'll be honest, a lot of police officers, if you explain to them and you don't have a horrible driver's record, they might not want to jam you up.
Well, I didn't, and that's exactly what happened to me. He didn't even talk to me about it. He gave me the ticket and said, see ya. Just be careful pulling out here is what he said. Last thing he said to me. It's like, wait a minute. I yelled at him. I said, wait, is there any points on this? He goes, well, that's up to the magistrate.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's not up to the magistrate. Those points are going to be assessed by PennDOT, and you're going to have them whether you want them or not. If you want, contact me off the air.
So I'm straight with you, Carl. Are you telling me I should get an attorney?
If you're worried about the points and you're worried about your CDL vis-a-vis the earning potential of a CDL, I always tell CDL drivers to fly with an attorney. But that maybe this is your first ticket. Maybe you'll never get another one. Maybe this is your 100th ticket. Maybe this is your first ticket, but you're going to get 3 more. I don't know.
Well, how about it's my first ticket in 10 years?
Yeah, you should be. Well, you should be pretty good. But I don't know if you're going to get 2 more down the road. I just don't know. All right. I got to go into break here, and I know people are anxious for the weather and all that good stuff. So,
all right, Carl.
All right.
Thank you.
540-0580, Carl Rominger, the show's weekend appointment, answering your legal questions. 540-0580. As you know, there's a little snowstorm out there. I guess this is climate change, Art. It's coming. You know, I think Al Gore ordered this up to prove to us that we need a new treaty or something, right? Because now that it's colder, that proves that it's getting warmer.
Well, Al Gore knows everything, you know.
I mean, it just drives me nutty. And but that's okay. They're going to solve it all with a new health care bill, so it doesn't really matter. Can't wait till that happens. And I also had a user post something he thought I would thought was interesting. He says, "Good morning, Carl. I immediately thought of you when I read this article. It goes on to say, the article goes on to say, Reading, police chief doesn't want, see Pennsylvania, they say everything funny down here. Police chief doesn't want officers in court for ticket hearings because it costs the city more money than they collect. See, I've often said that these tickets are all about the money. Nobody, well, I think a lot of people believe me, but it's funny. Oh, we can't have hearings judged because we lose money on the tickets when we do it that way. Well, if it was about truth, justice, and the American way, right? It's about punishing evildoers. You wouldn't really care if you lost a few dollars on it. Last I checked, when you put a robber or a rapist or a murderer away, it usually costs the government more money. They don't make any money on it. When it comes to those parking tickets and those traffic tickets in the city, well, it's got to be a money-making operation. Maybe they shouldn't write them. I don't know, but it's just kind of funny. And I have that linked from the website if you want to read the article. Of course, the court is sort of pointing out to the chief, there's a little problem there. See, you have to have this thing called proof in court, and you have the right to confront your accuser. And if the accuser is a police officer, he's going to have to be there to testify. 540-0580. Ken, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Ken.
Carl.
What's going on, my friend?
How you doing?
Good.
I'll tell you what I did one time. I was going, 3 of my friends and myself were going down to Myrtle Beach, and I got up to York, Springersbury Township, and right before I got to the first red light on Route 30 there, to make my left-hand turn to go to 83, a police officer pulled me over and said I was speeding. Well, I didn't think I was, and I wasn't, I wasn't in the mood to. First, I always learned a long time ago, anyone who carries a gun you respect. So I took my ticket and everything. So I come home from my vacation. I had my summons in the mail. I mailed a check for $150-some up there to the JP's office and told them I wanted a hearing.
Okay.
So I went to the hearing, and I said to the police officer, I said, would you agree to lower the charge to a 3111? He says, I don't know. He says, I don't think the judge will go for that. I said, if he does, will you be in agreement? He said, okay. So it was my turn to be in court, so I go there and do everything, and I said to the judge, I said, well, he asked me, he says, how do you plead? I said, well, I'd like to plead guilty to a 3111. He said, where'd you come up with that at? I said, well, I have a friend that said it might be something to do. And I said, and my sole purpose of pleading guilty to a 3111 is the fact that I'm not going to argue with the officer that I was speeding. And I'm willing to pay my debt to society for that criminal offense.
Right.
I said, but what hurts me is when my insurance company finds out about this, they're going to say they want a piece of the pie. And I got to pay a 30% surcharge for the first year, and then I lose 10% every year with my insurance premiums.
Right.
I said, so I have no problem, paying my
So
debt.
What'd the judge do?
He agreed to it.
Yeah.
You know, which the officer was in awe after it all happened. You know, when I said this, because he didn't think he would do that. But
Well,
I had some good advice, and it worked out well.
And you actually did it the right way, because sometimes that's the approach is, well, okay, you're not saying you're opposed to it, because a lot of times people don't want to say yes, but they also don't want to say no. So you did a very good negotiating technique there, which is, okay, you're not saying that you wouldn't do it. You're just saying that because the judge probably wouldn't, or the DA wouldn't agree to it, that you're apprehensive. But you are saying if it was up to you and you're asked, you'll say it's okay. I remember doing that one time with a police officer and a district attorney. I talked to both of them in the hallway in the courthouse, and the one said, well, I would do it, but I don't think the DA would. And the DA said, I would do it, but I don't think the officer would agree. So I grabbed both of them real quick and got them together and said, okay, guys, I just talked to each of you separately. You both said this. So I guess that's what we're going to do, right? And that's how it works.
I think it's double jeopardy. You know,
it's a collateral consequence, and I know how you feel about it being double jeopardy, but the law says it's not. It says it's something to have.
I realize that. I mean, it don't matter what.
I know, and I know. Trust me, it drives me nutty, these collateral consequences, and it's just an excuse again for the insurance company to jack up your rates.
Absolutely, and you know that's quite an expense, 30%.
I agree. All right, Ken, I'm gonna take some more callers. Thanks for the story. 540-0580. Ruth, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger.
Hello.
Hi, Ruth. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. I just have a question. After putting it off too long, I decided to take care of a living will for myself.
Okay.
And I had the form. I read over it, and it said that it has to be the signature. You must be there in front of the notary when you sign it.
Okay.
So I called my 3A's office and asked them if they could take care of it. And she said yes. So I went in there yesterday, and she looked at me and she says, well, where are your witnesses? I said, what do you mean? Well, she said, you have to bring 2 witnesses in here. I said, well, I don't know how I can do that. I said, I'm alone. My family's gone. I live in a rural area.
Right.
My closest neighbors are about 1/8 of a mile away, and they're both elderly with medical problems. And all the other scarcely settled neighbors for a half mile in each direction, the husband and wife both work. I said, I thought perhaps someone in here could, be the witnesses. And she said, oh, no, we don't know you. I said, well, I've had my auto insurance and my homeowner's insurance with you people for over 30 years. I says, how do I handle this? She says, well, you'll have to figure that out.
Well, Ruth,
what do I do?
Well, Ruth, here's what you could do. If you want to do a living will, and I'll give you an example, or a real will, or a regular will, or either one. Mm-hmm. If you hire a lawyer like myself, okay, when you come to the office, we make sure when we schedule a will signing or a living will to be done that our notary is in and that at least 2 other lawyers or staff are available to witness that aren't me, because that way you have the lawyer who drafted it, who can say, I did it and this is what she wanted. You have the 2 witnesses who sign it, and you have the notary. So you got 4 separate people kind of validating the whole thing. And I can't understand why anybody would do that to you, because we always provide the witnesses in my office, and I know most lawyers do the same thing.
Well, and especially since I've had, as I said, the auto and homeowners insurance with them for over 30 years, and they know me in there. And she said, no, we can't help you. Yeah.
Think. Well, Ruth, if you, I don't know if you go on the internet at all or not, but if you go to weekendappointment.com, or I'll give you my office number. You got a pen?
Just a second.
All right, Ruth.
I was wondering how people could take advantage of that free appointment if they don't have a computer.
Yeah. Now, the living wills aren't free. We have a nominal charge for those, but we have a free regular will. But you make an appointment, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
You ready?
All right, I'm ready. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's 241 6070.
6070.
And that's the office number in Carlisle, okay?
In Carlisle.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you don't have an office anywhere closer?
Probably not, but talk with me. We might be able to work something out.
Okay, fine. All righty. Thank you so very much.
All right, Ruth. We might make you drive a little farther. We won't make you bring any witnesses, okay?
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank
All right.
you.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, witnesses are a dime a dozen. The purpose of the witnesses are there just to authenticate the signature. They're never needed, which makes no sense why anybody wouldn't want to be the witness. Skip, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hey, how
how you doing, Carl?
Good. What's going on?
I have a question in regard to an automobile accident.
Yeah.
If people are out partying, time to go home, the person who's driving is not necessarily visibly intoxicated, but you know that they had quite a bit to drink.
Right.
You get in the car as a passenger. You don't put your seatbelt on, and 2 blocks down the road, the guy plows into a parked car.
Mm-hmm.
They take you as a passenger to the hospital. He's arrested for DWI, the whole 9 yards, and you go to the emergency room and you're released. Now, when it comes time for the insurance paying the bills, can they say, because you knowingly got in this vehicle with this person who was intoxicated or had too much to drink, and you didn't have your seatbelt on, that they can either refuse to pay the bills or cut down what they will pay?
Skip, hold on. When we get back from break, I'm going to answer that for you, okay?
Thanks a lot.
540-0580. See you after the break. (540-0580) is the talk line number. Remember, if you want to win, if you want to claim those Applebee's gift certificates that a whole bunch of you won, you better go check weekendappointment.com if you haven't to see if you're one of the registered users who won. We sent out an email. There's about 1,200 of you, and about 500 of you checked the website, meaning there's about 700 people that haven't gotten around to it yet. And I know a whole bunch of unclaimed prizes exist, so if you haven't done it or you know somebody who's a registered member, remind them to do that. Because, we're going to re-gift them later. Of course, maybe you don't want to tell anybody since we're going to re-gift them. Also, we're giving away a $25 one and 2 $10 ones after 7 o'clock tonight to anybody who's a registered user by then, including everybody who already is and everybody who becomes a registered user. Got a good chance of winning, so make sure you register at weekendappointment.com. Skip, you were asking me before the break, basically the scenario is somebody's drunk, they're driving a car, you don't really know that they're drunk, but you know they've drunk quite a bit. You're not wearing your seatbelt and there's an accident. Well, yes, the fact that you got in the car with somebody who's intoxicated might be contributory negligence on your part.
Okay.
But it depends on their level of intoxication and the visibility of that intoxication, and that's a fact question. And even if, because they're negligent, doesn't mean you can't recover if you're contributorily negligent. It just might act as a reduction on what you can recover. Further, the fact that you wear a seatbelt or don't wear a seatbelt in Pennsylvania is irrelevant for most purposes in auto accidents, except for a small reduction in any potential rewards you get. And the fact finder, the jury, or the judge is not allowed to know whether you had a seatbelt on or you didn't have a seatbelt on.
Okay, but in the final scenario, would they still be responsible at least for the medical bills?
They'd still be responsible
and all of that.
Well, the medical bills are reduced by your own contributory negligence as well. But here's the answer: you darn tootin' straight. I've had that case before, and I've never had them win on that issue.
Okay. All right.
All right.
If they have a problem, I'll have them contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to help you.
Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks.
See ya.
540-0580, Carl Rominger Show's Weekend Appointment Show, where we answer your legal questions. And, of course, I've had a great chance to meet a lot of the listeners in the office. Always feel free to do that and call me if you need legal help. And also take advantage of our free will program at weekendappointment.com. Jim, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Jim is asleep. Jim went to bed. No Jim. Oh, well, we dropped Jim. Call back if you can hear me, Jim. 540-0580. Another issue that comes up quite a bit is these sewage issues. And I had somebody post on the website about discovering that there's 2 people hooked up to the same sewer line. And, of course, the other person's saying, well, you're responsible for my sewer line because mine runs into yours. Well, in most townships, you can't have multiple or community connections. They used to do that years ago, but you really shouldn't have that, and it needs to be remedied because otherwise they're going to catch on someday and everybody will be in trouble. Now, not all townships have those kinds of rules, but I do get a lot of questions about common sewer lines, and I do get a lot of questions about mandatory sewer taps. You still got to do those. And I want to take a little side detour here and not answer a legal question, but I had the opportunity to go goose hunting this morning with Jason Nye, who's a very skilled waterfowler, and we got some snow geese. So if you go to our section on the announcements and events on weekendappointment.com. I posted a couple pictures of me and my snow geese, which I'll be eating for dinner later tonight. So if you want to take a peek, you can do that in the new announcement and events section called Carl Gets a Goose. We were expecting honkers, which is Canadian geese, and we ended up getting some snow geese. We saw some Canadian geese, but it got a little too windy this morning, if anybody had noticed that. Anyhow, I just want to thank Jason for taking me and some friends out, and hopefully we'll get to do that again with him. But if somebody out there is really interested in a good quality goose hunt, let me know, and I will put you in contact with him because he's a very skilled waterfowler and somebody I really respect his abilities. Great caller. 540-0580. If you have any legal questions, feel free to call in. If you want to comment about anything else, feel free to call in. And I want to go back to this global warming thing again. I'm going to keep hammering it every time I'm on. Go buy Michael Crichton's book, State of Fear. Go to Amazon, go somewhere. I don't care where you go. Go buy State of Fear by Michael Crichton. It's an older book, but it talks all about this conspiracy that's come to light now. But he writes a fictional account or fictionalized account where he points out how the whole conspiracy works. And I think that if you read it and you share it with some friends, you can help curb the trend of what's going on here, which is this whole carbon tax, which is really just a scheme, as you've heard Rush say, I think, a scheme to redistribute wealth. And I don't always agree with Rush Limbaugh. I don't always agree with Glenn Beck. But on this issue, I think both of them have been leading a good charge, and Americans are starting to wake up. But you're still not allowed to say there's no such thing as global warming. You still have to, be politically correct and toe the line and say, oh, we must be concerned about this. They can't predict the weather 5 days out, but they're supposed to be able to tell us what's going to happen in 100 years. And, of course, it turns out they're massaging all the data because it doesn't line up. And, in fact, the models haven't even predicted what we've gotten now. And I don't know about you, but I would tell you there is no such thing as global warming. Make sure you go get that Michael Crichton State of Fear. I'm just trying to pump that book up because I really, really think if you read it and you understand it, it's a great book. And at the end, he goes through the science of it in a little epilogue where he explains how he set out to write a book that was anti-global warming, telling us how we needed to help prevent it. And when he did the scientific research, he started to discover that there was a big lie out there. So one of the interesting little things that he points out in the book is that if you take most of the cities in America that haven't grown up in size, so you find cities that didn't grow over time, their average temperature has fallen over the last 50 years. If you find cities that have grown bigger, their average temperature has risen, but that has to do with, think about all the pavement and bigger buildings retaining heat. And there's an adjustment that's used to kind of wiggle around the urban growth. And it turns out that if you go and look at that adjustment, it was just sort of made up in a study years ago. And basically, he points out that if you just go to areas that haven't grown or places where you're literally just taking the temperature in the middle of the woods or a prairie or somewhere, average temperatures are actually falling a little bit. So I think if you read the book, you can kind of arm yourself with some important facts for this debate. And, of course, if you don't agree with me, well, heck with you then. 540-0580. I want to remind everybody, you want to win an Applebee's gift certificate, get to weekendappointment.com. Register by 7 o'clock. We've got some to give away. And, of course, the ones we've already given away, half of you have claimed them, but the other half haven't. And I would hate to re-gift them, and I hate to actually go use a few of them myself. I do like those big beers they have there. Oh, here comes the music. Sorry, there's a caller calling in. We're going to lose you here. But enjoy the rest of the wintry storm, folks. I will see you next week. And in the meantime, make sure you go to weekendappointment.com and register. And I look forward to hearing from you. And by the way, comment on those geese. Tell me how big they are.